So we've taken you through all these sensible options when it comes to small, medium and large cars and SUVs. Now it's time to have some fun. But fun doesn't mean just going fast, because we are talking a $20,000 budget here. So these cars, they have to be as reliable and as affordable to maintain and possibly repair as they are exciting to drive. And as always, we've tried to stick to cars that are as readily available as possible. We are going to cover the rare gems at this budget in another video. Also, even though we have tried to make sure that all of these cars are as internationally available as possible, we are talking Aussie dollars. And while some of the cars that we're including, they are being advertised for over $20,000, remember, we're talking used cars here. They very rarely, if ever, sell for the advertised price. Plus, go hunting through regional wholesalers and auctions and private sales, because that's where the bargains are. Honestly, all the cars that we're mentioning in this video, they are all available for under $20,000. You just got to go hunting in the right places. And also, because there are so many great performance cars at this budget, we're going to have to split this into a two-parter. And we're also breaking this up into performance car categories. So let's start with hot hatches. Okay, there are loads to choose from for this budget, but kicking things off, it's the Ford Focus, which for $20,000 you can have in 2-litre turbocharged ST trim. Yes, there are 2.5-litre 5-cylinder models available at this price point, which we call the XR5 Turbo here in Australia. And for $20,000, you can get a mint condition low kilometre example, and they can be epic, but they are getting a little bit long in the tooth these days, and there are simply way more 4-cylinder STs on the market. So when it comes to the 2-litre ST, look, there are post-2015 facelifted models available, but most will be showing well north of 150,000 kilometres on the clock. And let's be honest, many of those kilometres will have been driven very hard. So instead, we'd be going with a pre-facelift, low kilometre and excellent condition 2012 to 2014 example instead. You still get all of the performance and excellent driving characteristics, just with fewer toys to play with and a bit of a low rent interior. Plus, being a Ford, just be aware they're not perfect in terms of reliability, and things can go a little awry. But arguably more fun, actually no, not arguably, because I've driven both of these cars countless times, so objectively more fun than the Focus ST for around about the same budget is the Fiesta ST. We're talking 2013 to 2017 Fiesta STs, and look, yes, believe the hype. These little pocket rockets are one of the most entertaining cars money can buy, and for under $20,000 they can be a bargain. Just make sure that they have a full and thorough service history, make sure that they've been cared for, and try your best to ascertain that the previous owner isn't a dickhead. Now, we've made a full review video of the Fiesta ST. The link is up there in the corner and also down in the description. And as that video will show, yes, these can be an epic little car, but many have been abused, and that's going to result in mechanical nightmares, which is something that our next option seems to be far more resilient from, even when they're mistreated. It's the Honda Civic Type R. For $20,000, you are going to be looking at the little spaceship FN2 Civic Type R from around about 2007 to 2011, which is potentially the least loved of all of the Type R models. But after reviewing one recently, we actually think they are criminally underrated. Some criticize the handling because of the torsion beam rear end. Those people are just wankers who don't know what they're talking about. Others criticize the lack of torque from the engine. Guys, it's a Honda. It's all about the revs, not the torque. But thanks to the unpopularity, you can get a bargain. Here in Australia, for $20,000, you can get yourself into a mint condition 2011 example with less than 100,000 kilometres on the clock. Again, guys, for the full details, go and watch the review video up there and down there. But what if you just must have more torque than what the Civic can provide? Well, how about so much torque that you can basically change lanes just by hitting the accelerator? That's right, it's the Mazda 3 MPS or Mazda Speed 3. Great news here, for 20,000 Aussie dollars, you're going to be looking at the more premium end of the market when it comes to these Mazda hot hatches. We're talking the 2009 to 2013 BL series, and if you can, find a post-update Series 2 example from 2011. Like all performance cars, many of these have been abused and poorly maintained, so there are some absolute dogs out there. However, there are also a bunch of pristine examples that have been owned by someone that just wanted the very top of the line Mazda 3, having no idea that they've actually bought the performance model. And these are the ones to get. If the owner is, say, mature in age and their car has a full and thorough service history, buy that over something that has been modified and clearly driven in anger. Also, the 3 MPS is often accused of having some shocking reliability concerns, but we're finding with the right maintenance and servicing, and when driven with mechanics mechanical sympathy, and when not drenched in all manner of dodgy modifications, they can be completely trouble-free. But potentially the hot hatch that offers the best bang for your buck, or the biggest smile on your dial for the least money spent, is the Suzuki Swift Sport. First of all, for this budget, you're going to have the choice of two different generations when it comes to the Swift. Either the older 2015 and 2016 1.6 litre naturally aspirated model, or the more recent 2017 to 2019 1.4 litre turbo. Which one should you buy? Well, that really comes down to what you want, but both are awesome. The older naturally aspirated model feels more like old school hot hatch. It's constantly fun, but it does need revs to really shine. It does also feel a little bit rough and ready in terms of the NVH levels. It offers an acceptable level of features, but it is clearly a generation older, but it is charming. The newer turbocharged Sport swaps revs for torque and gets up and boogies at a moment's notice. It does feel more grown up than its older sibling. It's more refined, it has more safety features and tech like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It's still a load of fun to live with, just a bit less manic. But overall, look, both are showing great reliability, they're both practical for their size, and they are both highly recommended. And then we move into actual sports cars, basically cars that prioritize the driver and having fun far higher than practicality. And we're going to start with two that are, actually they might still technically kind of be hot hatches. They're like a perfect split between a hot hatch and a sports coupe. It's the Kia Proceed GT and the Hyundai Veloster Turbo. So look, chances are you already know this, but under the funky sheet metal of these two South Koreans hides very nearly the same mechanical package. Short of the funky door arrangement in the Hyundai and the multi-link suspension in the Proceed versus the beam axle in the Velosters, pretty much everything else is shared. The engine, the electronics, the platform, so much more. However, this also means they share the same concerns when it comes to the 1.6 litre turbocharged engine. See, these engines are showing a worrying level of failures recently, actually resulting in a class action lawsuit against Kia and Hyundai. Granted, the majority of concerns surround these companies' 2 litre and 2.4 litre power plants, but the 1.6 unfortunately makes an appearance on the list of complaints. This obviously doesn't impact all Velosters and Proceed GTs, and we found that when maintained correctly and driven responsibly, the vast majority of owners love their cars and have never had an issue. And when it comes to loving their cars, after reviewing the Kia, wow, like what a thing. We haven't had a chance to feature a Veloster yet, but we kind of expect the same. They might not be the fastest or the most celebrated performance cars, but bang for your buck, these two are very hard to beat. Actually, you know what? Just on the whole not featuring a Veloster yet, if you happen to own a Veloster, especially a Veloster Turbo, and you live in Sydney or Newcastle or somewhere close, and you'd be happy for us to review it or feature it on ReDriven, can you let us know how to contact you, either via the comments down there or maybe on our socials? That'd be awesome. Okay, next up, and before we get into rear-wheel drive world, it's another Honda, or if you're watching this from North America, it's an Acura, and it's one we all seem to forget about. As impressive as the Hyundai and the Veloster are, why not avoid all of those potential reliability concerns, step back in time a generation or so, and get yourself into a DC5 Integra / RSX? Okay, so first of all, being from around 2006 to 2011, look, yeah, these are getting pretty long in the tooth, and they are going to be showing plenty of kilometers on the clock at this budget. But we are talking about a Honda here, so the build quality and the reputation for reliability, it's about as good as it gets. But wait, before you go to rush out and buy a Type R, assuming it's the bee's knees of DC5 Integras, just be aware that some markets, like here in Australia, were delivered something of a fake Type R. Now, we will cover this in more detail when we get around to reviewing one, but the Japanese DC5 Type R is a very different beast to what was delivered internationally. Our Type R was effectively just a softer Japanese Type S wearing Type R makeup, which, look, it's not a horribly bad thing, but if you're after that raw, ultra-visceral Type R experience, any locally delivered DC5s might need some modifications to extract their best. In saying that, however, and in isolation, the DC5 in any form is a bloody lovely car. They're actually really practical with that big glassed liftback, and thanks to Honda being, well, Honda, even with a load of kilometers on the clock, they're proving to be ultra reliable. But as good as the Integra is, there's just something about a sports car being rear-wheel drive. which brings us to the Nissan 350Z. Unfortunately, and similar to the Honda actually, so many 350Zs have been ruined with terrible modifications, dodgy repair work, and owners that simply cannot fathom driving with any form of mechanical sympathy. But for $20,000, there are some really good examples out there. They just require some intelligent searching and thorough investigation when you do find one. And when you do, guys, what a car. Look, sure, a 370Z would be lovely, but even though the budget doesn't stretch that far, the 350 is still an incredibly enjoyable car to drive. When cared for properly, is proving to be pretty reliable, and when in great condition and in hardtop manual form, might just become a future classic. But there's another option here. It's the V35 Nissan Skyline 350 GT, or as those in North America call it, the Infiniti G35 Coupe, which are very nearly identical under the skin to their 350Z sibling, only a little bit more GT cruiser than outright sports car. And if that 370Z itch just needs scratching and you're happy to swap out driver feel and engagement for a touch more comfort and practicality, maybe check out the V36 Skyline 370 GT / the Infiniti G37 Coupe. But for all of these Nissan options, guys, please steer clear of any of the poorly modified examples on sale. They're going to be a nightmare. And unless you need an automatic for medical reasons, where you can, try to buy the manual. And if you want a convertible, guys, buy a real convertible, not just a sports car with the roof cut off. We'll take you through the convertibles to buy in part 2. But for our final rear-wheel drive option for $20,000, yeah, it's pretty predictable, but it does make sense. That's right, it's the Ferrari Enzo. I'm joking, it's not. It's the Toyo Baru GT BRZ 86. Still bloody ridiculed for not having enough power and being simply overrated, when are these cynics going to understand that A, a good driver doesn't need to have copious amounts of power to have fun, and B, the Toyo Baru twins are arguably responsible for keeping this entire category of affordable, fun-to-drive sports car alive? Guys, give them the credit they deserve. And they do deserve credit. Superb reliability, endless tuning options, relatively practical for this genre and size of car. They're even great for a long road trip. But it's their affordability that nails it for us. See, it's one thing to buy a performance car, but can you afford to maintain it? Because if you're going to drive these cars with serious enthusiasm, you're simply going to go through things like tires and brakes and all of the consumables. But thanks to the 86/BRZ being so small and light, it has far less of an appetite for all of that sort of stuff. Plus, being naturally aspirated, there's none of the complexity with forced induction and heat management, and both of these attributes help with reliability. And when it comes to reliability, these things are so tough, as we found in our full review video up there and down there. Look, overall, in regards to the Toyo Baru GT BRZ 86, guys, ignore the haters. These things are so good, and we highly recommend them. Now, guys, next week we're going to be delving into like sports sedans / muscle cars, sport compacts, and convertibles. What cars do you think should make the list? Let us know in the comments. See you next time. And the Hyundai Veloster. Oh, you. And when it comes to loving their cars, But wait. Before you go rushing out to buy a Type R, we haven't had a chance to which for $20,000 you can have in 2-litre turbocharged ST trim. Gotta remember to breathe, otherwise I collapse and that makes for a terrible video.